Hi, everyone. How's it going out there tonight? Well, we're just going to actually wait for a moment and have all of our people populated. So while we're doing that, we've got a special message for you.
Tragically, I lost my son, Ben, to a fentanyl overdose. It was the hardest thing I had ever had to endure. It's happening across Canada. Fentanyl is wiping out an entire generation of our people. So we started a foundation, Guardians of Recovery, to help people with mental health and addictions who are struggling and not included in society. We've done a great job of including people with disabilities in our society. Now imagine a world where people with mental health and addictions have that same level of inclusion. That's what we're about to do. We are inviting you to take part in one of the most progressive and creative initiatives of our time, building sober living homes for our people to make sure they are cared for and have an opportunity to completely come off substance and live normal, productive lives.
Well, hello, everybody. It's Tina Olivero chiming in with Guardians of Recovery podcast. It's my pleasure to join you tonight, and invited as a special guest this evening is my good and longtime friend, Jeff Candow. Hi, everyone. We've got some people leaving comments. Tonight, we're having a conversation about what's happening with the illicit drug crisis. Why is it impacting so many of our males? We have, as many of you know, my son Ben was had tragically lost his life to a fentanyl overdose. And hi, all the hearts and hellos are coming in. And tonight we're going to really dive into this from a male's perspective and start talking about like what's happening with our youth, what's happening with our men. We have some staggering statistics about what's happening to men with the illicit drug crisis. And so Jeff and I are going to have a conversation, just an open conversation about our lived experience with the illicit drug crisis and why it is impacting so many of our youth and especially our males. So Jeff, welcome to the show. It's good to have you.
Thank you so much, Tina. Greatly appreciated and so honored to be part of this journey. And just feeling so blessed that I get an opportunity to speak to some amazing people out there in these trying times. And maybe we can shed some light and help heal some hearts here today.
Yeah, absolutely. Jeff is one of my favorite people to banter with. He'll give me a call, and next thing you know, like 2 hours are gone on the telephone. And we have talked about everything from, how we all got here, what's happening on a spiritual perspective, what's happening in the world. Like, he's just one of those people that you can kind of talk to about just about everything and anything. But before we dive into a conversation, I want to share with you some staggering statistics that I have taken from the Canadian website, federal website, and addiction, and the number of deaths because of the illicit drug crisis. And I'll share that with you now up on the screen, just give you a look at what's happening. So what we have here on the screen is this sort of summary of what's going on with the illicit drug crisis. And I want to take you through that just to show you what's happening. So at the very top, you'll notice that there was a total of 40,642 people, or what they call apparent opioid toxicity deaths, between January 2016 and 2023. My son Ben was one of those people. Well, no, actually, this is until June 2023, so Ben lost his life in July. But that's a staggering number, 40,000. We're getting close to our numbers with COVID-19, yet our country's not responding at that level. So it goes on to say that a total of 3,970 of the apparent opioid toxic deaths occurred so far in 2023. So you can see that our numbers are rapidly increasing and that we're averaging 22 deaths per day in Canada, which is staggering. The number of total apparent opioid toxicity deaths in Canada reported so far in 2023 was 5% higher compared to the same period in 2024. This is based on preliminary data subject to change. Well, what we know about Newfoundland is that Newfoundland's opioid deaths are almost doubling year after year, 2022 compared to 2023. So where are the majority of deaths happening? British Columbia, Alberta, Ontario. But the next piece where most apparent opioid toxicity deaths occurred among young to middle-aged males. Males accounted for the majority of accidental apparent opioid toxicity deaths at 72% so far in 2023. So that's the real statistic, folks. It's like, if, what the real question is, why do we have, 72% of our young male population dying from opioid overdose? And we all know that we have, one Facebook user says, my son died in 2020. Yeah, precisely, folks. And so we have to stop and we have to kind of start thinking, okay, the opioid death is the final result, but what's going on in our society, what's going on in the minds of our youth, our men, and are we living in an enabling society that is causing a lot of this? Like, that's the conversation we're going to have tonight. So I encourage all of you to ask questions, to put in your comments, to let us know what it is that you're thinking about this. What's your life experience? That's exactly where Jeff and I are speaking from, our own personal life experience. We're not doctors. We don't have, all the answers. All we have is our own personal experience. So tonight, Jeff, let's start by talking about a little bit, like going back into your own personal journey and sort of bringing everybody up to speed on, who you are, what you do for a living, what life was like in the past for you and your journey of sort of recovery, and why you made the choices that you did.
Yeah, sure. I have real personal experience with my own, I guess you could say, addiction early on in my life with alcohol. And I grew up with an alcoholic mother who I watched go through so much. And it was a real challenge until she passed, some years ago. And but I would say early on in my late teens, early 20s, probably for almost my entire 20s, in all honesty, Tina, I was probably a heavy binge drinker, and on the weekends couldn't wait to drink to the point of like blacking out. And it used to be a lot of fun, and it took me some time, and like some good people around me started saying, hey, like, you want to kind of have another kind of life experience. And I look back at some of the worst nights of my life, and that were the nights that I was the most intoxicated. And it took a while to see, like, there was such a difference between like those nights and how you can naturally be in your life. So not to say that it's not fun from time to time to have a drink. That's totally not what I'm saying, but realizing there was a challenge there when I knew I couldn't go out and not be comfortable in my own self without having a drink in my hand, right? Mm-hmm. So then, as wow, and there's something I need to look at here. And I think a lot of times this stuff creeps up into your life slowly. It's like it comes in the back door of your life, right? Because we're just talking about drinking is such it's on billboards, it's on advertisements, it's a lot of the times the cool thing to do, like you can't watch 5 minutes of advertisements on TV without an advertisement for some form of alcohol, you know? So especially here in Newfoundland, I think it's a very heavy part of our culture, right? Um, but for me, I think it was a mask. Like I was dealt with a lot of struggles and from growing up and challenges, and that's how I was just kind of dealing with the pain of the things that I hadn't processed through yet. And
Mhm.
I think a lot of things that are showing up in people with addictions, whether it's alcohol or drug related or whatnot, you know, there are things there they're trying to process and not able to make sense of it in ways. And this is one of the things that they do. I know I did. Um,
Mhm.
and it had me living a lifestyle that I wasn't who I am today, you know,
Yeah.
because you grow up thinking like, you know, to be a man, it's like how many beers you can put back or you out drink your buddies or whatever, or how sophisticated the wine is that you drink and what all these things. And it's not who we are. That's just something that we do, you know?
Yeah.
Um,
So we grow up with like society defining us as a man under certain criteria, and to either have to live up to that criteria, whether it's a culture of drugs or what was primarily alcohol. These days, it's primarily drugs, and that the primary drug of choice seems to be right now. The market is coke, and now crack more prevalent, and now fentanyl is coming into the scene, causing all kinds of deaths. So, but it's like cool. Let's be straight about it. It's cool to be doing coke right now. Like all the cool people do it. It's part of the fun scene, the party scene, the music scene. It's like the cool thing to do, and people are dying, as a result. So there's that's the part that I think most interesting is like what kind of conditioning and patterning is happening that guys are saying this is what defines me, this is who I need to be in order to fit in, because ultimately what's behind all that is connection, right?
yeah. I remember having an interesting conversation with a very successful young business guy here locally. And I was doing some painting at his place. And on the exterior, big, beautiful home, married, you know, beautiful wife, kids, cabins, the lifestyle on billboards, you know, from the 3D perspective, incredibly successful. So I was a little bit shocked when, you know, it was at the end of the job and we're just connecting, you know, shooting the breeze. And he said, he goes, man, I can't wait for the weekend. And I said, why is that? He said, I can't wait to just go up to the cabin with my buds, get on as much cocaine and booze as we can and black out. And I was kind of taken back. I'm like, whoa, like this guy, you know, from the external uh, reality here looks like everything is well put together, but literally running through his week with all the busyness in his career and making money and whatnot, and just totally numbing out on the weekends. So
Mm-hmm.
it hit me. I'm like, wow, like if that continues for the next decade, is he going to be another story? Right. And it's so
Mm-hmm.
interesting how a lot of people will say, oh, I couldn't see this coming. But I think our society is so busy and so fast and hyped up, and we're not paying attention to the signs of the ones that are really truly suffering. Right.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and these ones that are suffering that are at all levels, it's not just the poor people on the streets. We're talking, this story goes for doctors, it goes for lawyers, it goes for engineers, politicians. It's a disconnect, I do believe, that's been happening for a long time on the under level of society. The
Mm-hmm.
question is why? Where is it ultimately coming from?
That
Right?
is the question. What do you viewers out there think about the answer to that? Why do you think all of this is happening? I mean, the medical genetic side of it is one thing. It's in your family, like you said, your mom had addictions, you followed suit. It's in the family. There's that. There's also the Newfoundland culture, which is like party scene central, which we're known for across the country as being great partiers. But now, you know, that's not looking so pretty downtown these days. When you see, you know, shootouts and people shooting up, and the level of number of people that are homeless, and the level of crime that's happening, and random attacks and all that, it's not so pretty anymore.
No.
So that's the question. It's like, I think we're at a vortex in time where it's like a new definition of who men are, or who men could be in a new time, like a new sort of personal identity.
Yeah, I do believe a lot of men. I think, you know, society does evolve over time in different ways, and sometimes we might go in a certain direction, and then we'll need to course correct. You know, we might head in a way and be like, whoa, this is really not a great way to be. And I think, you know, we've watched, you know, women explode in so many amazing ways over the past 100 years, or even 50, 60 years. And women have evolved so much more into all what women were meant to be. And I think men were behind the times and we're trying to catch up. But you can see a lot of men are lost and trying to find a new identity for themselves on the social, cultural level. You know, men trying to evolve beyond themselves of just being a provider or just being a certain way, trying to access new parts of ourselves as a human being. You know, if you can identify, yes, you're a man, but you're a human being, that's a more full and body expression of what it is to be alive. So I do think women probably got some more kinds of emotional intelligence, maybe that is a little bit ahead of men. And I think a lot of times they might be reaching out, you know, trying to either understand more themselves, but are reaching for negative things, or they just don't know and they're just trying to numb out from reality, right?
Well, there's the whole thing about like women being emotionally expressive. Like the girls get together, we all have a chat, we talk about what's going on in our lives, we talk about our emotions, we excavate anything that is like we're angry about or whatever. We all sit there and have a grand chat. Like my chat with my girlfriends. And these days, my guy friends tend to be people like you, people who will actually talk about their emotions with me. That's how I qualify my friends, is authentic conversations about what's really going on in life. And you can see that authenticity is on the rise for sure. But to be authentic, you first kind of have to acknowledge, like, I'm really pissed off right now, or I'm feeling really helpless, or I'm, you know, it's about a willingness to be vulnerable. And I don't see a lot of that in men. And I wonder, does that correlate to the fact that we do have so many guys that are actually overdosing? Like, is drugs a way of dealing with the emotional, I guess, the emotions that are not being expressed?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think there's a couple of different facets going on there. There's definitely that of like what is the actual definition of a man? Is he supposed to be like hard as nails and absolutely invincible, or is he supposed to like have other dimensions to him that you should be okay with, right? Because it's like society tries to put you in in boxes, and like you step outside that box, and society don't do well with these things. It could be a job title, could be a gender thing, or it could be an age conversation. It could be ethnicity or religious, right? It's no different in the two genders. So I think we're trying to come back together on what it means to be, you know, fully embodied as a man or fully embodied as a woman, and full expressions of that. And I think we're in some confusing times on what that looks like for us. I also want to add too, though, that I think for a lot of the young dudes nowadays, this is just from my perspective here outside looking in at some stuff, a lot of them are not getting in their bodies enough. I find if you're spending a lot of time online and you're really sedative, then you're given these strong athletic bodies for a reason to do something with. I'm not saying that all men are going to go out and run triathlons or become star athletes, but there is definitely a level where we're not engaged with our bodies enough, even if it's just a simple walk. I mean, I heard a stat some time ago, I think it was about 50 years ago, what the average high school student could do for both push-ups, sit-ups, and chin-ups was like, I can't remember quite. I think it might have been 50 push-ups, 30 sit-ups, and maybe 20, 15, something along those lines 50 years ago. We're down to like 10 push-ups now, roughly about the same sit-ups, and I think 3 chin-ups. So that's showing that our relationship to our body is not as good as what it used to be, right?
Yeah.
And you can have a direct correlation in like anxiety and depression and all of these, not so great things that are going on with our emotions into the level of physicality that as the physicality goes down, these other emotions go up. So once all these other emotions are on a high swing, what are people going to do? They're going to reach for something to numb out with. Sense, right? Because ancient yogic philosophy, I mean, I studied to be a yoga teacher training, and I learned so much about just the importance of having a connection with your body. North America is not great with it right now.
Yeah.
We're so inundated with technology and the screen, right? And I like technology is a part of our world now. That's no question. But there should be some level of a balance of like, hey man, I haven't been out for a hike this week. Let's go. Let's hit the trail or run or get to the gym or just play a sport, take a yoga class, something.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We're missing that piece of expression of ourselves. Right?
Yeah, for sure. Someone says, my Thomas needs sober living house very soon. Yes, exactly. I mean, right now we can hardly get people into detox and rehab, let alone sober living homes. That's exactly what we need. And Wanda says, I believe all this stems from the fact that people are so disconnected from God and are too involved into themselves that they forget who they are and what their main purpose on this earth really is. Yeah, for sure. I mean, part of the 12-step program is, handing it over to a higher power and being able to, tap into whatever your beliefs are as a place of, as an anchor or foundation.
100%.
So when you decided to give up alcohol entirely, like what did you go through? How did you do it? How did your life change?
There was a couple of really big, powerful, impactful moments, and it's kind of personal, but I'll share it. I remember it was another night with a very beautiful lady. I thought my manhood was directly tied to going out, and this is what society told me was manhood at the time, of finding the most beautiful lady down to the bar, and we get to go home and share a lovely evening. Fine. But I remember after we had our experience, I got up from bed and I almost broke down in tears because I felt so alone and disconnected. It was gut wrenching because I was like, is this what's all that's meant for me? Like, is this as good as it gets? Like, it was such a disconnect from who I am and what my soul actually wanted for myself that I started to realize that a lot of the norms in society, a lot of people are afraid to talk about your soul, your soul's purpose, your connection to God, Creator, whatever that word is for you. It's just a word. You can't expect to express all it is and ever was and ever will be in one word. It's impossible, right? But it was that's when I could feel this giant void that I'm assuming so many of these other beautiful souls that are struggling with these severe addictions must be feeling on a magnitude that I can't even comprehend. right?
Yeah.
I had a taste of it, and I just thank God that I had enough strength and willpower to steer the ship. But it took a while. I lost a lot of friends, colleagues. There are certain places I just wasn't, I couldn't go anymore. It takes an awful lot. And that's what absolutely breaks my heart when I see how little the government has set aside for people that are right there at the precipice and they want the change, but cupboards are bare. It's like, look, and a lot of the small stuff that I do see is almost like token stuff, like just to say something was done so we don't get such a massive wake up call and uprising to say, what are government actually doing for the
Yeah.
people?
Well, I think there is going to be a massive uprising, and I think it's going to be only a matter of weeks before that happens because we talk to so many parents every day that are just kids are on death's door. And here's, as an example, here's Facebook user says, my Thomas needs sober living house very soon. And then she goes on to say, he's getting out of prison and terrified. Like, that is the state of our province, where people are actually in prison to stay safe from drugs, safe from fentanyl, safe from drug dealers. And it's a pretty sad state of affairs when people will do things, break the law just to get back into jail because they don't feel safe in the society we have. Last couple days back, we had a professor from Leeds on the show talking about building sober living homes, sober living communities. Like, I envision, and I think what would be so amazing is to have a place where we have like sober villages, cafes, bars, like bars as in sober bars. Yeah, place to go dancing, connecting with people. So sober, like, just like there was cafes popping up and restaurants and bakeries and all these kind of things. There's 30 sober cities popping up around the world. Like, that's what I want for Newfoundland and Labrador. And that's what our people need. People should not be terrified to get out of jail. Like, there's something seriously wrong with society when that's where we are. I like that, and they are beautiful souls. Thank you. Yes. And my son is just speaking to him about his release and where he's going to turn. Yes, because we do need sober living homes. But whoever that Facebook user is, get in touch with me. I can also connect him with the guys at Turnings. They're fantastic. All right. They are frightened going in and frightened coming out. No rehabilitation, set up to failure. Indeed. I'm sober for 3 years from alcohol, and we have nowhere to hang out. Exactly. We want to start building inclusive, sober cities. We sure do need sober living. Yeah. Like this, having a sober society has got to be the next cool thing. That's what I think we need to build. And it is cool. It's not just making something, pretending it to be cool. It is cool because, like, you're a sober person, right? I'm a sober person. My life without alcohol and drugs is a completely different life. Number one, I don't waste days on hangovers, and not just days. I don't know, as you get older, it turns into a whole week.
Yeah.
And it doesn't, you don't have to worry about that thing affecting your health and stealing your days when your days are numbered as you get older. But also, like, just your clarity of mind, your confidence, your ability to say, you know what, I'm going through really, really tough times, and I'm calling on my inner strength to deal with that, not some like outside source that when I wake up is going to be 10 times worse. And to have that kind of clarity and confidence in yourself, even if the whole thing goes to hell in a handbasket, like Ben, I just lost Ben. Like, how does someone survive that? I would not have survived that if I was drinking. I would be a puddle, and I would dig myself deeper to the point where I don't think I would have survived it.
Yeah.
And that's the honest to God's truth. put substance in my system right now, and I'd be a goner for sure, because it exemplifies whatever you're feeling. Alcohol does. So, if you're dealing with extreme sadness from losing a child, you're going down in the depths of despair, and you'll be lucky if you get back out.
So true. What I find so interesting too, Tina, is about our societies and how our, governments are running our cities and whatnot, is you never see a shortage on alcohol or cigarettes and obviously the other stuff, do you?
No.
Right? There's always an abundance of this stuff. And if these things are wreaking so much havoc on our societies and our mental, emotional health and our physical, it's like, why is it always so splashed out there, front row center?
Yeah. There's no problem. There's no problem to go into a bar. There's no problem to get bruised. There's no problem to get weed. There's no problem to do needles on the street. But try and get into recovery, or have start building a whole new ecosystem of recovery. It's not. People are just blind to it.
Yeah. It's almost like I don't know where people what people believe in or whatnot, but it's almost like government would want more of a sick society because it's more dependent on the system itself, hence more control. Which is it's a weird conversation, I know, but there's some
definitely taxes, and people say, oh, they don't make that much on taxes. Yeah, they do make a lot of money on taxes. And there is a certain element of control. And one user says, weed caused me so much anxiety. Yeah, it's like, where's all the truth about this stuff, about how it actually makes people feel, and how sick it actually makes people?
Yeah.
I feel the same. My grandson will soon be released, and I'm scared to death. Yeah, I mean, families and parents and grandparents, they're frightened to death because they don't, their children, grandchildren don't have anywhere to go. Excuse me. Alcohol is pure poison. Why is it even legal? There's a lot of people who 100% agree with that to be true.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%.
And I didn't grow up with someone saying to me, beware of alcohol, beware of drugs. It was like every Friday night you go out and get blitzed. And I remember at a very young age having a party and not realizing that alcohol would just blank out my brain. But it would. And, alcoholism is in our family. Mental health and addictions are rampant in our family. So, of course, it's going to impact all the people in the family. And to think that it isn't is pure, denial of what's actually going on. And you keep denying things. You need to use substance in order to keep denying things.
It's so interesting you talk about the denial thing, Tina, because as I have been having conversations with, people that I know about where the states of our society, like true where we're really at, not what we're pretending where we're better off than what we actually are. There is definitely a level of denial, right? Like people just want to be wrapped up, whether it's into their sports programs, and nothing against if you're a sports player or anything like that, but it does take up a lot of your time that, even if you spend half of it focused on what's going on in your community, your city, what type of laws and efforts the governments are putting forth into changing the societies, whether it's numbing out with reality TV shows that adds nothing to the value of your life. And there's such a variety of distractions for people to entertain themselves with, as opposed to what's happening. And oftentimes people won't pay attention until they're absolutely devastated and probably lost a child or a loved one. And then it's too late then. It's too late then when that's happened. So I do question a lot of that. And how did we get here in this realm of distraction where everyone is more busy looking at the next Netflix show as opposed to who just died next door to me in that drug house? Like what?
It's for sure our priorities. Like what happened to caring for your neighbor or going and helping somebody? Or like, ask yourself how many hours you spent this week just doing something for someone else. I mean, the minute that you get out of your own world and stop feeling sorry for yourself and you get on with it, and you start helping other people, you immediately start to feel better. So where is all of that gone in society? Someone says people will offer it to me several times in one night after I tell them I have a problem with it. Yeah, that in itself is pretty disrespectful, because I mean, I I don't drink. I went out last night with my girlfriends. Everybody's drinking, having a grand time. I just drink coffee or tea or whatever, water. And it took some conversations for me to say, like, I am not drinking, never drinking. Don't ask me if I'm drinking. Like, I had to set that boundary and I had to say it loud and clear. Now, with my close girlfriends and everything, it's all good. But sometimes it takes not tolerating other people pushing that on you. But I proudly say, if someone, like, alcohol did not destroy my life. I never had an issue with alcohol. If I drank even 4 or 5 drinks, my brain will go blank. That's a problem. But it didn't destroy my life. It was not something that I couldn't live without. But I chose not to drink. I'm choosing this as a choice. And I want people to respect my choice, not just respect it, but be proud of me for that choice, and not have them use it against themselves as some kind of mirror of something they're doing or not doing. Whatever people want to do is their choice, but this is my choice, and I want my choice for my health and my sobriety to be honored as much, if not more, than drinking.
I'll never forget the first year when I decided to not drink. And I went to, it was Christmas time, went to a family thing. And the uncle-in-law that whose house I was at, he liked his drink, his beer, loved it. And that's cool. But I could never forget at how awkward he felt when I'm like, no, man, I'm good. I'm doing something different here. I'm trying a new way of life. And he must have asked me at least 6 times, Jeff, want a beer? Jeff, want a beer? Jeff, want a beer? I thought he was going to get on his knees and say, please drink a beer. And like, man, I'm good. And then I eventually just went over, got some Coke, and just as long as he seen something in my hand. But I was amazed how it registered into my mind, like, wow, this man is actually very uncomfortable that I'm deciding I'm okay. I'm having a lovely time at your house. I'm happy to see you and your wife and the kids, my cousins. We're all good. Food's great. What's the problem? Right? But it's so indoctrinated and entrenched into normal human living that substances to alter the human state of mind is equated to happiness or connection or a good time, right? It's like it's programmed in there basically our whole lives. So the question would be then, what else is programmed in our minds that until you start really looking at things from different angles and start asking different questions of life, what else is there? Could be going on in our societies.
Exactly. And I think that's such an important thing. Like, whatever's not working as well as you'd like it to in your life is a teacher. That teacher is going to say, pay more attention. How do you pay more attention? You pay attention to what your body says, pay attention to what your emotions say, mind, body, spirit, pay attention to what your spirit or soul is saying. Like, you start asking the questions about what I'm meant to learn here from this, and everything changes, everything. So, the world is going to reflect back to you what it is that you need to learn. It's going to be reflected back in the things that are not working as well as you'd like them to, whether it's your finances, whether it's, your, love life, partnership, relationship, whether it's the environment in which you live in. every single thing that's not working as well as you'd like it to has this amazing thing for you to discover and unwrap. And we're here, and this is where I think a drug addiction, especially in young males, is they're not taking the time to do that. They were never taught how to, take those special moments, which are seen as problematic, especially in our teens, especially, when they can go downstairs and go gaming, especially when they can do all these other things, but actually face the thing that might be hard to do, or face the emotion that could be hard to do, or face the learning that's requesting to come in. And right now we have a society where at 16 years old, you can get emancipated and you can go and get social services. That's what happened to Ben. Actually, I don't know if they changed the age. They may have. But at 16, Ben got emancipated. He could leave home, even though he had a safe home. And doing so, he, lived in trap houses, lived couch surfing. And, he was given the money to live in these places, but used it for drugs, get groceries, but use that money for drugs, even Christmas presents money, but use that for drugs. So our system provided Ben, my son, with everything he needed to be a drug user and to stay addicted under like the banner of safe supply drugs and harm reduction and shelters that are drug den shelters where people sell drugs and use drugs. So as a 16-year-old kid that's wanting to experiment with life and expand the boundaries, you smoke weed, it unlocks bipolar, you're given everything that you need on a silver platter, no rules. You can go out and live, on your own terms and continue to do drugs. Like the people that Ben was doing that with, when he first started at 16, he, over those 5, 6, 7 years, the majority of them are dead now. And that's a very sobering statement. That's indicative of our society. So not only is it questioned when we don't do drugs and alcohol, we have a society set up to make sure that we do.
Yeah, I look at a society and the quality and the success of the society by the quality of the lives of the people who are struggling the most. Mm-hmm. I don't measure it at the top, like the so-called proverbial top, whatever the hell that's supposed to mean. A lot of people think they're at the top because they got big bank accounts, when really we came into the world with nothing and we're going to go out with nothing. So the money, it's just something that it would be nice if more people used it to help other aspects of our society. And we don't have a resources problem. We have a consolidation of money and power problem by a small group of people of untold amounts of power and money. We can end homeless and overnight. Like why is it that this people in this world are worth $200 billion plus? That's sick. There's no explanation for this. When we have people living in these conditions that are beautiful people that are just suffering and have lost their way, and don't have the resources. So it's certainly a challenge to acknowledge the stuff that these beautiful souls are going through, right?
Yeah, for sure. Here it says, my husband has been sober for 25 years and people will still ask him if he would like a drink, and it pees me off big time. Yeah, I can see why. It's almost like we need to re-educate our culture. Like we did a really good job with wear your seatbelts. Now we need to do a really good job with, like, if someone doesn't drink, don't force them to drink. If someone doesn't want to do drugs, don't force them to do drugs because you feel bad. Most of the time, when someone's forcing you to do something like that, it's because they feel bad themselves about doing that thing. And they need you included so they don't feel bad themselves. It's a very selfish thing.
Yeah.
Thank you both. The fear is usually worse than facing the situation. Indeed. My son lost 22 here in town. Oh, that's so sad. We're losing so many people. We need to remove glamour from getting drunk and high like cigarettes. Yeah, exactly. That's it right there.
Yeah.
Whoever that Facebook user is, we have made this whole thing so glamorous and so attractive. But cigarettes was exactly in that same place. Now we need to actually stigmatize cocaine the same way we did cigarettes. And that way, when people recognize the number of people that are dying from fentanyl overdose and overdoses, like they're seeing their friends die, but still, cool. We need to take that narrative, change the narrative around, and make it super uncool to be doing drugs. And some of the world's performers are doing that, like Jelly Roll and those guys. And it's starting to come through because people are actually making changes as a result.
Yeah. We also need to be mindful of the impact of, let's say, entertainment can have on, let's say, young developing minds, because how many movies have we seen over the years where it's based on the fun and exciting world of the big drug trade, right? So you see the houses that these people are living in. They're living down in Florida, or they're coming up out of Cuba, or got the the fancy cars, the lifestyles. The dudes have the pretty ladies and all of the things, and it's almost like an ultimate enticement of an immature, let's say, ego perspective of oneself, of what fun and other things could bring with that lifestyle. So they almost like make it like sexy, right?
Mm-hmm.
To be deceiving someone. And I've had conversations with buddies of mine that some of them had dabbled in some stuff, and I always say to them, like, when your child gets that age and they're out and they're going to try their first stuff, can you honestly say, yeah, screw it, go for it? And every single one of them has hesitated because they were caught in a moment of like, oh shit, that's right. So it's that weird place that people slip, and all my buds are great dudes, right? They're excellent, amazing dudes and fathers. But it's this perspective of, it's just something that I got control of, that I'll do on the weekends, right? So it's okay. Yeah, but what about the young mind and personality that might have a bit more of an addictive personality that can't say no to it? And their lives from that moment on is done, right? I said, that's why there can be no gray area with this stuff. There is no gray area. With the power of the drugs that are on the streets now, there is no gray area, period.
Yeah. And
right?
Even the weed, when you can get like 80% THC and blow your brains out, and then take shatter and all the rest of it. We have lots of things coming in here. Even the shed parties, only booze and drugs, and I used to love it. Yeah. But it's a changing world. When watching movies, your subconscious mind doesn't know it is not real. Yeah, that too, right? Programming. Exactly. Perspective shifts are needed. Yes, they are. Absolutely. 1/3 of the population can't just do it one time. Yeah. I mean, these are super, super, super addictive drugs. Exactly. So, it still doesn't answer for me, and I'd love to get a doctor on the show to tell us what's going on in the male psyche, that 72% of the overdoses are male. I can't accurately answer that, and you may not be able to fully either. I mean, we can speculate and we can talk about all the things that we know, but I'd love to see the research. I'd love to see the data. I would love to see, what the medical system has to say about this. We'll get our researchers into this. We have researchers with Guardians. We'll start to look into that a little bit further. But you bring up a lot of great points. It's like, I'm here doing coke, but would I want my little 3-year-old to actually try it? Maybe not.
No.
Not at 3. 3 years old, even when she,
Right.
she grows up, and she's 13. She's gonna
Yep.
smoke pot. She's 15. She's gonna try shatter and coke. And those are the ages. Those are the ages. Like most kids, yeah, they smoke pot by the time 13, 14, 15. And then from there, they get right into, LSD and MDMA and, onto whatever's in front of them, the booze.
I do have another thought process that I would like to share and propose on. I don't have the answers, but I am curious is, let's say over the past 50, 60 plus years, the industrialization of processed foods and
Yeah.
and the amount of, let's say, chemicals that are in, we have entire generations of people now that have been raised on insanely enhanced chemicalized foods. So question is, could be, what does that do to the chemistry of a young developing mind, and over a lifetime of use, what could that be doing? Like, we're at that stage now where commercialized processed food is definitely a thing, and enough science and studies are starting to come out to start to tell the story of this. I do believe, and it's still going to take some more time yet.
Sure.
To what level and impact does that have on someone? I don't know, right? Like you said, I'm not a doctor, but I can certainly look at things and say, what is changing? What has changed? Because I don't think you rewind 100 years ago, I don't think we had the problems that we have today.
No.
Right?
We don't.
People were out active, doing things. They were eating different kinds of food. It seems like society was tighter knit. Families were stronger. It seemed to be, anyways. I wasn't around 100 years ago, so I don't know for sure, but I can just see from what I've heard. The internet also has driven people apart because they are not able to connect. We got more kids that are connecting and texting each other, as opposed to sitting down and having a face-to-face or a handshake and a laugh and a hug, right?
Yeah.
I never forget, some time ago, it was probably about, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, and I went out, and I haven't seen a buddy of mine for some time, stopped drinking. So, and he was an old party buddy of mine. I'm like, but I'll meet you for pizza. We'll have pizza and a laugh or whatever, or we used to do coffee. And as we're sat there in Boston Pizza, I looked around, and at least 50% of the people there were texting. They're screaming, and I'm like, my God, is that where we're at? We can't lay these things down. Now, the studies are starting to show that the more screen use there is, it increases the depression levels and anxiety, right? Like, this stuff got to come out, because we're heavy into the digital age here, and we need balance with it. It's not going anywhere. Digital age is here to stay. I totally get that. But can't forget about where we came from as well, what got us to this point, right? So that's just, and with the chemicals in the food, I do wonder, is it weakening the minds? And
I actually know a couple who were, deep in addiction, and they went vegan and healthy, and that's how they got off. And that's how they cured their addictions. Now, I think they went back to meat afterwards, but I found that to be most interesting. One Facebook user says hormone dysregulation from processed food, especially estrogen levels. Yeah, exactly. We don't know the half of what's going on there, especially with all this hormones that are put in meats and all kinds of stuff. Emotional dysregulation comes from toxins in our personal care products and food, indeed. Depression and anxiety will cause more people to try drugs and alcohol to attempt to ease pain, indeed. Screen time will mess with hormones as well as sleep-wake cycles, so it will make people try things for sleep and relaxation help as well. Yeah, whoever, I can't see any names on that Facebook user, but whoever it is, they're right on our conversation. So yeah, it's definitely an interesting thing. And then of course there's the genetic factor. Like my kids were raised, and like I've been teaching, self-awareness and personal development and spirituality for 25 years. So my kids were immersed in that conversation and had a lot of personal development tools. But even with all of those tools and all of that awareness, mental, emotional, and spiritual awareness, Ben was one of the smartest people you could ever speak to. And he was so wise that it can blow my mind sometimes. But even with all of that, genetically, what ran in our family, what my brother had, what my father had, what my brother had, what Ben had, the minute he smoked weed, it unlocked bipolar, and that mental illness, which is rampant across our family, decimated his ability and his brain and his capacity to have cause and effect and to be able to choose whether his make better choice for himself, basically. Tracy Penny. Hi, Tracy. It's 28 years of depressive, anxious thoughts and alcohol abuse. Got that. I got no sound now. Oops, someone's got no sound. Plus the fact that most kids are just handed everything. There's that too. Never knowing what it feels like to work for things. Most are ungrateful. There is a lot of that going on. There's no doubt about it. I mean, unless people have purpose of work, something to get up in the morning to do. Like, I believe that social services has decimated the country. That's my personal belief.
Yeah.
So the genes are an issue, but then they see it in the environment. Yeah. There's genetics, there's environment, there's many factors involved, all kinds of variables. But this is a super interesting conversation. We could break that down and have shows on every single one of those. And maybe we can get some doctors in to talk about the food connection, the gut connection. That's probably what we will do.
And I think there's one more thing that I just want to mention here tonight,
Sure.
Tina, is I'm going to say it's the lack of sacredness or having something beyond thyself to want to aspire to.
Yeah.
Like something to live up to on a soul, mental, emotional, spiritual level, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because if the internet is raising a lot of our kids now, and the reality is it's everywhere. You can barely get away from it. You look at the quality of stuff that's on the internet, unless you're inclined and you're pulled towards things that are actually going to enhance your life experience, you just get swept up in normal cultural stuff. I mean, my God, we're celebrating the Kardashians. Like, what the hell are they bringing to our lives value right now? Like, we're looking at that's the goalpost right there, or a superstar athlete that really don't give a shit as long as you're buying these sneakers that are worth $200 or wearing these jersey on his back. Other than that, you know what I'm saying? Like, we're putting people on pedestals that really don't belong there, and we're not finding some more beings with moral fiber and things that will help the human experience to enhance. That way it's a light, it's a moral compass for young minds to help navigate the jungle that this reality has become. And I really hope that for all these beautiful young souls.
Yeah.
I really do.
Yeah, what we hold in our highest esteem as a society, what has been portrayed to us as valuable, like you said, the Kardashians. Like, I just shake my head at that. I do not get that at all. That is the most demeaning, degrading thing that you could ever present to a human being, because that's not what life is. What shows up in life that provides us with true happiness? I don't see people gaining happiness, purpose, a sense of contribution from any of that. Anything that's sustainable. I just see that as like taking people down. Anyway, that's just my thoughts. Genetics plays a big role in addiction. I think I myself could have become addicted to booze. I used it lots of times because I wanted to numb things in my own life. That's how it gets started. The higher power of kids or even a dog will help not go as far into abuse. Yeah.
Okay.
And doctors don't know, get a nutritionist. Yeah, there's
Mm.
that too. Actually,
I
I have
can
a
get
whole story about a nutritionist. But I
yeah.
mean, even our little, food guide right now is not healthy as far as I'm concerned. So that's a topic for a whole other day. We are exactly on the hour right now, Jeff. I can't
Okay.
thank you enough for a very, very powerful conversation. Guys, tune in. We've got some very interesting guests coming up. We have talk about mental health and postpartum depression and hormones and that kind of thing coming up. We also have an interesting conversation from a psychiatrist in Alberta who is building his own recovery centers with new methods. And we all know that Alberta is at the forefront of addiction and recovery. So lots of great shows coming up this week. It's been a pleasure to thank you both. Thank you so much. We have lots of thank yous coming through. Great speaking to you guys. And Jeff, over and out. You are God sent and a great friend. Over and out.
You too, Tina. Take care.
Tragically, I lost my son Ben to a fentanyl overdose. It was the hardest thing I had ever had to endure. It's happening across Canada. Fentanyl is wiping out an entire generation of our people. So we started a foundation, Guardians of Recovery, to help people with mental health and addictions who are struggling and not included in society. We've done a great job of including people with disabilities in our society. Now imagine a world where people with mental health and addictions have that same level of inclusion. That's what we're about to do. We are inviting you to take part in one of the most progressive and creative initiatives of our time, building sober living homes for our people to make sure they are cared for and have an opportunity to completely come off substance and live normal, productive lives.